welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, we got the first three rounds are in the books. We are down to the Stanley Cup Final. What are your thoughts on the ending to both round three in the East and the West? Because I know we both seem to think that at least one of these series was going to end up going seven, but they both got finished early.
Yeah, so to start off, spoiler alert, we're not talking about the Stanley Cup Final today. We are going to talk about that in Friday's episode, just because the Stanley Cup Final doesn't start until Saturday. So we're kind of just going to wait until later this week, and then maybe we'll kind of know a bit more going into the series and maybe some more stories going into it. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know which series it was going to be, but I kind of expected at least one of them to go seven. There was a very realistic chance that both went to seven, and we unfortunately did not get that. I mean, I'm just kind of shocked that both series were done in six. But it again, we're not talking about the Stanley Cup Final, but the teams that we did get, the Florida Panthers and Edmonton Oilers, does set up for a really nice Stanley Cup Final for us.
Yeah, and I have not heard very many people who are very high on the Edmonton Oilers going into that series. So we'll be breaking that down more on our Friday episode this week. But it sounds like a lot of people are favoring the Panthers a lot, and I mean they showed up big against a very borderline unstoppable looking New York Rangers team, who we'll be talking about near the end of the episode. Be doing the stats updates going into the finals, but the two teams that got eliminated had two of the best goalies in these playoffs, in Shesterkin and Ottinger. So there might be a lot more high scoring games in the final. But yeah, I definitely thought one of them was going seven for sure. Like I'm surprised that both of them got handled in game six.
Yeah, I mean Florida wins it in game six at home, and Edmonton also wins it in game six at home. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because we were kind of at that point where, even though, like, at the point I was kind of looking at it, and this was when both series were 3-2. Florida was up 3-2 over the Rangers, and Edmonton was up 3-2 over Dallas. And I was even still kind of looking at it. I was kind of, I kind of always have like a little power ranking thing that I'm always kind of doing throughout the playoffs and looking at it. And even still, when it was both series were 3-2, I mean, Florida was still number one in my power rankings, and the Rangers were number two. Despite them being down in their series and Edmonton being up, it just felt like watching Florida and the Rangers. It was like, these are the two best teams left in the playoffs.
It really did feel like one of those years where it felt like we're going to look back and be like the real Cup Final kind of happened in the Eastern Conference Finals, where it's like whichever team wins is probably going on to win it all. Obviously, we don't know
and that's
yet,
how we felt last year too. But even when Vegas took out Edmonton in round two, I was kind of looking back at that at the end of the playoffs, and I was like, shit, like that was kind of Vegas' Stanley Cup Final was beating Edmonton in round two, not even round three. Just because, as much as I wanted Dallas to win last year, it just kind of felt like Vegas just kind of dominated that. And then, even with Florida, and again, Florida, obviously numerous injuries, especially the nasty injury that Matthew Tkachuk was dealing with. But like it really felt like that was Vegas' Stanley Cup Final was round two against Edmonton. And I was kind of getting that vibe with their series against the Rangers, because I mean, what, three was it 3 or 4 games went to overtime?
I
think
I'm
it might
not 100%
actually
sure,
only
but
been 3.
yeah, it was enough of them that it felt insanely close. And just watching those two teams play, like there is so little room for error. Like you cannot have guys on your fourth line or your third pairing just filling minutes. You need everyone to be really responsible out there and just be good. You just need an insane roster right now, because you make any mistake, and any guy top to bottom in the lineup for the Rangers or the Panthers will absolutely jump on everything. So
Yeah.
it's I'm hoping that the Oilers can win, but it's it's not looking great because that is a scary Florida Panthers team.
Oh, I mean, most definitely. I'm just trying to pull up the stats here just because I want to make sure that I am like 100% correct before I say this. Okay, yeah. So I'm right in saying this. So I mean, again, we're not diving to Stanley Cup Final, but when looking at Florida, it's again, it's a team by committee, right? And it's been that way since last year, and even going into this year. And a guy that I was, I mean, pretty hard on after last year was Alexander Barkov. And I mean, and he always plays a great defensive game. But it's, if you're the captain, you're the big guy up front, you still need to be contributing offensively. And I felt like Florida didn't get his full capabilities last year. But looking at this year, I mean, round one against Tampa Bay, Barkov always up against Kucherov's line. Nikita Kucherov, 0 goals in that series. Round two, going up against Boston, and he was against Pasternak's line. David Pasternak, um, he had 1 goal. So Kucherov has 0 goals. Pasternak has 1. They go up against the Rangers, and he was up against Panarin's line. Panarin, 1 goal.
Yeah.
And not only that, Panarin's 1 goal came with like a minute 40 left in the series when the Rangers made it 2-1 there in game 6.
Yeah.
So like, and again, McDavid's gonna, we're gonna talk about that matchup, and McDavid's a completely different story. But the fact that Barkov's line is able to not only be scoring at the rate that they are, but they are shutting down the other team's top line is so instrumental to Florida's success. And then the rest of the lines, they can do their thing. They can go out there and they're a crash and bash team, and they know that Barkov and the boys up front, they're going to be doing everything they can, as they've already proven, to completely shut down the other team's top line, basically. And I think that's a huge thing that they're gonna kind of have to they're gonna have to keep doing. It's
Yeah.
not okay. We did it 3 series. Now we can take rest off. It's like, no. Now this is the one where you need to step it up even a level further. You have to give that extra 5%, 10%, because you're taking on a much bigger monster here in the finals now. But I think that's a huge part of Florida's success is the way that Barkov has been able to, well, not only Barkov, but I would say Barkov's line, because it's not just him. Like, he is very good, but it's his entire line as a whole at shutting down the other team's top end talent that they rely on for a lot of goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those stats you said speak for themselves. Like, they are so good at shutting you down, and they also have a great defensive core, which obviously
Yeah.
helps with that. And then on top of that, Bobrovsky back there, while he hasn't been exactly one of the best goalies in the playoffs, he's still been very solid for them throughout the playoffs. So
And he showed
it's
signs that when he's on his game,
yeah,
he's right up there with the best of the best. Like we
yeah,
talked about Florida before, they've now gone through Vasilevsky. They've gone through Jeremy Swayman, who was looking like a top 5 goaltender in the league throughout the playoffs. Like people could be talking about him as a
yeah.
top 5 goalie in the league going into next season. And
I think
then
people are. I think people genuinely hold him at
yeah,
that point at this point.
and then Igor Shesterkin, who in my opinion was from the start of the playoffs up until the team stopped playing, was the best goalie. Like he gave the Rangers, he almost like put the Rangers in the Stanley Cup Final just by him being outstanding. So the fact that Florida's been able to do that, along with their top guys playing really solid defensively, like they're looking good. They're looking very good right now, and they just continue to um, just impress me more and more. Like even though I know, hey, I know what to expect with this team, I know what they're gonna do. They take that next step, and I'm like, holy shit! Like it's even better than what I was expecting going in.
Yeah. Yeah, they're an incredible team, and um, a lot of what the Oilers have been doing has been insanely impressive as well. Um, I don't know if they've
Mhm.
exactly been winning as in as dominant fashion as the Panthers. You know, they got taken to a game 7 by Vancouver, but they've still like fairly handily come out of the West as the Western Conference champions. And one thing I did want to quickly bring up was some of McDavid's stats, just because they are so NHL 24 be a pro fucking looking stats.
Mhm.
And so I just want to bring up, what do you think is higher? Just off of your gut, which do you think is higher, McDavid's regular season points per game or his playoff points per game? Because I will say it's close.
Um, it actually might be his playoff points per game because he's at what? Is he at 30 or 31 points?
He's at 31 right now. I'm
So
talking over his. Sorry, I'm talking over his career as well.
career. Oh, so like career points per game in the playoffs versus career points per game. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it actually might be playoffs still though.
You would be correct.
Yeah.
He has, in the regular season, he has 982 career points in 645 games and 106 points in the playoffs over 67 games. That's 1.582 points per game in the playoffs and 1.522 points per game in the regular season. For the regular season, over 82 games, that would be a 125 point pace. He plays at 130 point pace in the playoffs over his career. And right now, what he's doing, I think, is higher than that, actually. So he's bringing his career average up with that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and that's what I'm talking about, right? Like, the guys that, Markov and the top line have been able to shut down so far in the playoffs. Like, it's impressive. But like, it's like, McDavid's his thing. Zach Hyman, probably the best player in the league in terms of within 5 feet of the net. And then, Nugent Hopkins, even we saw in this Dallas series, can rise to the occasion when need be. So
Yeah.
And again, it's McDavid leading the charge on that line, but he's got some help with him, and he elevates those players to a completely higher level than where they should be.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it's incredible, like the run that Edmonton has been on. We were talking about them at the beginning of the regular season when they were, kind of at a low point.
They were
Things weren't
second last
looking
in the
right.
fucking league. They were like second last in like mid-November, was it?
And
Like that was
at that
insane.
point, they lost to the Sharks, who were like 1-11-1 at the time. So like they were in a dark spot, and to complete, it gives vibes of where the St. Louis Blues were. Not as impressive, because the St. Louis Blues were almost near the halfway point of the season, and they were dead last in the league. Edmonton was 3 weeks into the season, second last, but they also have McDavid and Draisaitl.
But they also did finish a lot higher than the wild card that St. Louis squeaked in with. They also they didn't, like, a lot of people had them written off for the playoffs, but like they finished very comfortably in the playoffs as well. And I do wonder if the coaching change had much to do with it, or if it was just the team started clicking.
No,
I know at the time McDavid had a bit of an injury.
The coaching change 100% completely changed this team. Like, I know Oilers fans adored Woodcroft and loved him, but if they stuck with him, they honestly probably do miss the playoffs, or they sneak in as a wild card and maybe go first round. Like, the coaching change completely changed the entire trajectory of the season.
I don't. At the best case scenario, if they kept Woodcroft, they go out to Vancouver in the second round.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But like, again, looking at what both these teams did, and to get it done in 6 games is incredible. Like the level they've been playing at, and their ability to go and execute. I mean, look at Edmonton. They were up in game 6. They're up 2-0 after the first period. What were the shots? What was it? 12-3, 11-3, and they were up 2-0.
Ridiculous like that.
And then they end up getting outshot like 33-10, and they win, which also actually set an NHL record for lowest shots on goal where a team won a series clinching game, which I mean
Huh.
isn't like that's I mean, that's not really surprising. Like if you get 10 shots and you win a series clinching game, yeah, you're probably gonna win that record because that
Yeah.
doesn't really happen. Um, and Stuart Skinner, I mean, we've been hard on him on the podcast here before, and ever since he kind of got that yank there in the Vancouver series, he's come back and he hasn't looked elite. Like I'm not saying he's an elite goalie and is putting the team on his back, but he has been very solid and has not hurt the team one bit since coming back into the lineup.
Yeah, he's been great for them, and he's gonna have to be even better against this Florida Panthers team. But yeah, I think it's definitely gonna come down to their offense on the Oilers because I see Florida as relatively on par with Dallas, honestly, as far as their offensive firepower goes. But they're a very sound defensive team,
And only
and
that they're more aggressive than Dallas, though.
yeah,
Like they are more in your face. They are more hitting.
yeah,
Um,
they are a
so
playoff built team for sure.
yeah. One thing I do want to say with Dallas, and again, this you can call me a biased Sharks fan if you want, but Joe Pavelski, who um, obviously that's the sole reason I was rooting for Dallas is I did want to see Joe Pavelski win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
He is the only player in NHL history to play 200 plus NHL playoff games without a Stanley Cup. And
Oh,
the reports are right now is it's kind of up in the air on if he's going to be, be in like whether he's in Dallas or just playing in general. Will he be in the league like next year? It's kind of unknown.
do you know what his
And I just
contract is looking like right now? Is it expiring?
his contract's up this year.
Okay.
So if Pavelski does stay in the NHL, I do fully expect him to just re-up with Dallas. Probably, honestly, a 1 year, $1 million deal.
Yeah.
But if this was it for Joe Pavelski, which we don't know, we might not know for some time. If you asked me, I even put this out on Twitter. If you asked me going into the playoffs, how much time does Joe Pavelski have? I'd probably say 2 to 3 years still. But after watching the playoffs, again, barring an injury because we don't know, I think it's his last season. And if it is, I just want to say thank you to Joe Pavelski because, one of the best players in San Jose Sharks history, uh, incredible career for a guy who was a seventh round draft pick. To do the things that he did and have the career that he did, absolutely incredible. And I really, really hope at the bare minimum, we get at least one more season of him to try and get it done. And if it is, I fully expect it to still be with the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, I think if he comes back at this point, it's pretty much it can't be about money. It can't be about it's got to be about winning the cup. And
Exactly. It's all about
he
winning the cup at this
and
point.
he's got a
now.
fantastic shot at it with Dallas. I don't think there's much point in signing 1 year 1 million in Florida or Edmonton or somewhere else to try and get it when you already
Mhm.
know these guys and you were right there. I
And if
definitely
anything,
think
Dallas is
that
only going to take a step further next season because you're going to have a full,
because their guys are
you
all
know,
so young. Like
yeah,
their prime is 2, 3, 4 years ahead of them. So the
yeah.
fact that they're at this point already is insane.
Like I think Wyatt Johnston takes a step forward. I think Logan Stankoven does. I think Thomas Harley does. And that's not even to mention guys that they have coming up like Maverick Bork, Christian Kyrou, Liam Bichelle. Like they've got guys coming up who are going to be better than some of the guys that they did have this season.
Yeah.
But again, it's a playoff, so you never quite know. But if Joe Pavelski does return, I do expect it to be a 1 year, $1 million, like a Joe Thornton type deal.
Yeah, yeah.
1 year, 1 million, just
Like
to come
basically
back
league
and
minimum 1 year, try and get that cup,
yeah,
sign with the team. Yeah.
yeah.
And I would love to see that.
And for I mean for both, I mean again, I think Dallas's window is still wide open, whereas the Rangers, I think it's slowly getting smaller and smaller because Igor Shesterkin, who MVP of the Rangers playoffs, and you can't even argue anybody else.
Yeah.
Has 1 year left on his deal. But there's reports that him and his agents, like his camp, they are looking for $12 million at the bare minimum on his next
Woo!
deal,
Wow.
which is really going to hurt the Rangers team. You know, you're going from Payne Shesterkin, I think he's making somewhere in the $7 million range-ish, to going up to 12. That's going to take out a good chunk of your cap there that you can fill the rest of the team. So again, I think Dallas's window just keeps getting bigger right now, especially just with what they have and the talent coming up. Whereas the Rangers, I think it's kind of getting smaller. So, but again, we'll kind of have to wait and see on what these teams do going into the offseason, because I'm very curious, because I think both teams feel like they're I think they both still feel like they're on the cusp of, like, we're right there, like 1 or 2 moves and we're the ones in the finals and we're going for the cup. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how both sides kind of take an approach into this offseason, and do they kind of just micromanage and do a couple small things, or do they go big and, you know, make a big move to really try and make a splash for next season?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. I think this offseason is going to be crazy. I think there's going to be a lot of
Yeah.
big changes, and it's exciting. But enough about that. We got
Well, I just got one more thing.
okay.
Because you just mentioned, like, big moves this offseason. Again, I don't know if this is true, because this comes from Frank Saravelli, which I've kind of really pushed him to the bottom of the, you know, taking what he says, because he's really just become an Edmonton Oilers fanboy. Like, that's all he talks about is the Edmonton Oilers, and he's part of a group Daily Faceoff, who, you know, they're like, oh, we're all about hockey, but like they just push Edmonton Oilers propaganda, and they got Saravelli on there. So anything he says now, I'm kind of like, yeah, you've kind of lost your credibility. But he did state today that he believes that Marty Necas of the Carolina Hurricanes will probably be traded somewhere before Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final, which we know is Saturday. So
Wow.
I'm very curious to see when we come back later this week. I'm curious to see if Necas is already moved by then, because for something like that, I kind of thought it would be you know, maybe just before the draft, or
Yeah, a
maybe a
bit of a
draft
slower
day
burn.
trade or something. But he says that he's sensing that it's going to be done before Saturday. So I guess maybe this is his make or break moment for me. If it happens, all right, maybe he does have some credibility still. And if it doesn't, well, fuck him. I don't give a shit what he says anymore then, because I've kind of really grown tired of him over the last couple months now.
That would be crazy if they trade him during the playoffs, like before the finals even start. When they got eliminated in the second round, like that, and
Also,
that's not just a medium move, like that's a big freaking
yeah,
move for them too.
yeah,
So like, yeah, we'll
they must
definitely
have
keep
an
an eye on
offer
that.
that Carolina must have an offer that they on the table right now from someone that they would feel comfortable doing something along the lines of.
Yeah, they
And
have
bear
the
in
base in the
mind,
trade.
Frank Saravelli is the guy that said, given everything going on with San Jose, they won't make the playoffs until 2030. We're in 2024. So, I mean, obviously I'm not like the Sharks are making the playoffs next year, probably not the year after, but 2030 is
That's a bit much.
that's a bit much. Like that's getting into like Buffalo Sabres territory.
Yeah,
And the way that talent's coming up in the league and development, I don't think we see a team go on a Buffalo Sabres run like that probably ever now. Like
I
that's
definitely
long.
think you can, but it's at that point it's not a player thing; it's a management thing.
You would need to have shit management.
The owners need to be mismanaging your team and your assets so much that guys keep wanting to leave, and guys keep like getting pissed off, and nobody wants to sign there. Like there's got to be multiple problems with it, and especially a place like San Jose that already has good young prospects and is just a place that people would want to go. Like it's not like Winnipeg where people are like, I don't like the weather. Like San Jose's nice. So
Yeah.
I don't think they'll have trouble getting some free agents there once they're a little further along in the
Yeah.
rebuild. So
I mean,
I do not see 2030 being the
it's no
case.
Los Angeles, but it's better than Anaheim. It's right in the middle, I think. But anyways, we obviously we are, we didn't talk much about Florida in its entirety in Edmonton, as that will be basically our entire coverage for Friday's episode. Braden, what do we have next here?
You wanted to talk about something
Oh,
with the
let's do it.
CHL playoffs, right?
Let's do it. Let's do it. This, and I will say this right now, anyone who's listening who hasn't heard this story, this is going to blow your mind.
He's been building this up to me for a little bit now. I'm really curious as what's going on.
So we talked last episode about the Memorial Cup and where it was at. We knew that Moose Jaw was playing Saginaw on Friday, and then the winner would play the London Knights on Sunday in the Memorial Cup Final. So on Friday, the Saginaw Spirit absolutely demolished, dismantled, ruined the Moose Jaw Warriors and beat them by, I believe it ended up being 7-1 was the final score. So the Saginaw Spirit, the host team, the team that gets a free ride, a free rub and dub to the finals, plays the London Knights. Probably the best CHL team this year.
Right.
Memorial Cup, Sunday. This is a rematch of the what you can call the conference finals of the OHL playoffs.
Right.
The
Is the Memorial Cup, is this one game or is it a series?
No, so it's kind of like a round robin tournament. So every team plays each other. So each team plays 3 games. The team with the worst record, which was Drummondville, is eliminated. And then Moose Jaw and Saginaw was 2, Moose Jaw was 3. So they played each other. The winner goes to the Memorial Cup Final against the number 1 seed in the round robin, which was the London Knights.
Right.
In the Western Conference Finals of the OHL playoffs, it was the London Knights versus the Saginaw Spirit, which the London Knights did win in 6 games. Now, we know in the Memorial Cup, the Saginaw Spirit was up 3-1. The London Knights climbed back to make it 3-3, and Saginaw scored with about 30 seconds left to steal that game, and they got the revenge on the London Knights. This game was so much bigger, in my opinion, for the London Knights than just a Memorial Cup game. And it goes back to their series in the Western Conference Finals of the OHL playoffs.
Right.
We bash on the NHL's Department of Player Safety quite a bit, I think. I think we rip into them a fair bit on here.
Oh, I love to do it. They do a horrendous job, in my opinion. I don't like where this is going, but keep going, yeah.
The OHL Department of Player Safety, or they're just what I can't even call it player safety in this case, is so fucking bad when you hear this story. So I'm gonna tell you this. In this series between London and Saginaw, a player got suspended 5 games, which included, I believe it was the game 6 of the series, which London ended up winning. And then so he got suspended the first 4 games of the OHL finals.
Yeah.
Guess what he did to get a 5-game suspension in the playoffs? What do you think he did?
I mean, it's got to be something insanely reckless. Like, it's got to be like a massive sucker punch or hitting somebody in the face with a stick, like a cross check or a slash. Maybe skate involved, honestly. Like, 5 games in the playoffs is a lot.
What if I told you he never even touched the other player?
Oh, no.
So, this is what happened. It was during warm-ups. The player on Saginaw, I'm not going to say the players' names just because, I just want to leave them out. I just want to talk about the situation as a whole.
Yeah, it's more about how it's handled than the players themselves.
And I'm also not very happy because the player on Saginaw, who I think is an absolute scumbag for this, the day after winning the Memorial Cup, actually signed a contract with San Jose's AHL affiliate, the Barracuda, which also kind of infuriates me because I think this guy's a scumbag. So it was during warmups, and the Saginaw player said to the London player, he told him that basically he was going to try and injure him and re-injure his shoulder. The player on the London Knights called him a pussy. Again, I'm going to repeat that. He called him a pussy.
Mm-hmm.
The player on Saginaw ended up going over to the refs and snitched. And he said, hey, this guy called me a pussy, which...
Wait, so that's all that happened, though. The ref didn't hear it. The ref wasn't nearby.
Yeah, the ref didn't hear it.
Okay.
The ref did not hear it. And so this, I'm just trying to pull up exactly what they call it. It's it goes in it goes as like it's inappropriate as part of the league's diversity program. So the player went and snitched to the refs. The refs write up a report about it and send it in. And that player on the London Knights got suspended 5 games because he called someone a pussy who was basically threatening him, saying, hey, I'm going to go out there this game and injure you.
Wow.
That is absolutely
That's
terrible.
embarrassing.
Not only the fact that the player snitched to the refs, but the fact that the refs didn't even go in and get the full story. They just take that and run with it and just send it into the league. And they're like, all right, yep, a 5-game suspension for that is in the playoffs, I think is just absolutely outrageous. Because that probably gets said over 100 times throughout the course of the game. Probably even worse things get said during the game.
Oh, 100%.
And the fact that a player in the playoffs got suspended 5 games for that, I think is just outrageous. And honestly, I guess in the OHL, there's a rule that you cannot appeal a suspension unless it's 10 games or more. So being a 5-game suspension, the London Knights couldn't even appeal it at all. They just had to take it on the chin and be like, this is what we're dealt with. Which it blows my mind that
honestly
that's how it played out.
To be perfectly honest, 5-game suspension, I don't even care too much about if you call somebody a pussy and the ref suspends you for that. That's stupid, but fine. The fact that the ref, we fucking constantly, you cannot watch regular season or playoffs. You cannot watch a hockey game without some player taking a penalty or an infraction happening against a player. It gets missed. He goes out to the ref and the ref goes, oh, I didn't fucking see it. But then you go over and said, hey, he called me a pussy. You're out of here and also 5 more games. You can't just believe the guy. Like, even if it happened, you can't just believe the guy with this hearsay argument. Like, Matthew Tkachuk should go game 1 to the ref and say, McDavid called me a pussy. Game 1 before it even starts. What's the harm in trying? Yeah. Like, that you... Players are so constantly saying, ref, you missed this, and they go, fuck it, I missed it. Hopefully I get the next one. You can't just change that after all the thousands of hours of footage that we have of that happening, and it never gets called because you can't just make a penalty up after you missed it. And a suspension on top of that is ludicrous. That is horrible.
Do you want to hear the cherry on top of this, which makes it a million times worse than it already is?
Sure.
The player on Saginaw who snitched to the refs, his father is the OHL's referee-in-chief.
Oh my fucking God.
So he's in charge of the referees of the league. Now, I will say that the league did remove him as, like, they put in an interim chief of referees for the playoffs because his own son was in the playoffs. So they did bring someone in to kind of run it. But you cannot tell me that does not play a factor in this.
No, that's massive.
The fact that the guy who runs the refs, his son is snitching, they are 100% backing that kid no matter what. And that's why they did not grab a word from the other guy. And they're just like, you're done, out of the game, gone, 5-game suspension on top.
The interim guy who's in is going to be, next season, he is going to be hired by the dad as the assistant ref
Yeah.
manager or whatever. Like
Yeah.
he just showed, hey, I'm one of your guys, and now he's got his guy. Like that's oh my god. Players go up so constantly and say, "Ref, this happened," and they go, "We didn't see it." You can't, especially when there's no guy down on the ice injured. The game hasn't even fucking started. You can't go over
Yeah.
and say that, and then the ref, how did it go? Did the ref just go, sure thing, you get off the ice, and he goes, "What did I do?" Or did he go over and say, "Did you call him a pussy?" And then the guy goes, "Yeah." What took place? Like, I, good God, I hope there's follow up on this story because there's as many uh things as it brings up, it only brings up more questions. Like,
Yeah. Like
it's
it
that's
is.
insanity.
It was like it was just it's just I was just blown away reading about this story because it just blew my mind that this happened. Like I just couldn't believe it because I originally heard about this about, you know, a couple weeks ago when it kind of happened, but I didn't really know the full story. So I was like, I'm not gonna bring this on here until I kind of know more about it. And now more has recently come out about it because Paul Bissonnette actually kind of talked about it a bit more and brought more to the story. And
Yeah.
then the whole story kind of ended up coming out. But like
The player's dad,
just
who is in with
brutal.
the refs, he should be fired and banned from being a part of any administrative part of that organization. The ref should be fired and have his ref license suspended at the professional level. And you know what? The interim guy should also be because he was clearly in cahoots. I don't know if you do anything to the player, but you know what? Any of these guys in a position of power over the entire league are blatantly corrupt, and
Yeah.
they should not be a part of that league anymore.
And the player who on Saginaw who snitched to the referees and threatened the guy received nothing, and nothing was done about it because nothing was considered because anything he said was not included in the referee's report. So the refs didn't even go and get the side of the story from the London Knights player. They just
What
took
else was
what
in the
they
ref's report? Saying pussy was in the report? He wasn't
yeah,
there for that. Like,
yeah.
oh my god, that's
So he took
crooked
what
as
one
fuck,
player
dude.
said and ran with it, made a report and said, "We're handing this in." Didn't even grab the story of the other player of the London Knights. He just took what he heard immediately, and that was his story, and he submitted that. And I think that is so corrupt.
Yeah,
And not only do I hate that Saginaw won because I hate when the host team wins, the team that gets a free fucking bye to the final while every other team has to grind through 4 playoff series,
yeah,
then go to this tournament. They have to travel to the host team, their city, play in their barn for every game, and the host team gets a free ride, play in their own barn in front of all their fans, and they end up winning. And not only and now this,
yeah.
I awful. Absolutely, it's an embarrassment for, uh, you could say the OHL, but the CHL entirely. I think it's an absolute embarrassment.
Absolutely.
Um,
And quite frankly,
and now it,
honestly, I don't even care that much about the guy going and saying, "Hey, he called me this." You know what? You're He's a wiener, but whatever. Like, I don't even care about that. But the amount of corruption going on, like playoff, like entire league wide there between that ref, the interim ref coordinator, and the head ref coordinator, that is insanity. That I haven't heard of this, quite frankly. That's insane that more people aren't talking about it. I know the world championships just finished and the playoffs are going on, but like that's bad.
not
Like
only that,
that is direct tampering.
the player on London was 19 years old. The player on Saginaw, 21. So he's the vet. He's the older guy. He's the overage player, and he's still pulling that shit. Fucking outrageous. I hate that.
Yeah.
Absolute garbage. And the league should be very ashamed of how this situation was handled.
Yeah.
The league to not even do a follow-up report and be like, all right, we got this story, but we at least want to hear what the guy in London has to say. We want to give him a chance to at least give his side of the story. They just take the ref report and say, all right, let's do it. Boom, 5-game suspension.
Do they get played to pay in?
So bad.
Do they get paid money to play in the CHL? Do they have
No,
contracts?
no. No CHL player gets paid of any kind.
Okay. Because I was gonna say, even if they do make money, even if they like literally have like you make $10 million or $10,000, not million, $10,000 over 80 games or something, like I would be taking that. I would be taking that ref to a judge. I would be like taking legal action, just because like you made me miss time because you're corrupt. Like that is horrible. Wow.
And I found
like you built that up so much. Like I was like, is some guy gonna be stupid and throw an elbow after a play or something? But no, dude, it's like the freaking league is corrupt. Like that's
like
messed
Buddy
up.
said something that gets said, probably ended up getting said 50 times during that game.
Yeah.
And and I heard about this story like just going into the Memorial Cup, and I was like, man, I want London to win even more now. And the fact that Saginaw got the revenge to win that game after all that, especially being the host, it rattled me. It did not sit well with me, and I am very because I love the CHL. We're Canadians, and we love our junior hockey here. I think it's probably the best in the world. Watching, we only really kind of can watch in person within the WHL, really.
Yeah.
But the fact that this shit happened, and it kind of ended up coming full circle, and London had a chance to get their revenge and didn't. It doesn't sit well with me, and it just really is a very bad look on the league. And now the fact that the San Jose Sharks, their AHL team, the Barracuda, signs this fucking scumbag to a deal. I don't like it. So I hope he fucking sits in the press box for every game, because if you got a player like that who pulls that shit, that's not a guy I want in that organization. That's just a scumbag player, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I won't support anything he does, because that's so low to pull that shit. And he knew. And I think that's the thing. He knew that if he told the refs that there would be repercussions.
I was gonna say it really does
player.
come off as if him and the ref met up beforehand and go, here it is, circle it in red crayon in the book, in the rule book.
Yeah.
You can't say words that fall under this categorization. You know what counts there? Pussy. People say that all the time on the ice.
Yeah.
You get me I'll get him to say it, and I'll come to you.
Yeah, because you don't go to the refs unless you know for sure that's a no to say that.
Like,
so the fact that he knew that rule and got him to say it, and then it's like, oh, you said it, I'm running to the refs with it.
That's so lame of the player, but like it's so much worse for the ref, in my opinion. The fact that this ref just he knows he's a ref. He knows that guys say this constantly. There's no way he's suspended guys multiple times for 5 games over this crap. And he wasn't there. He didn't hear it. Like, they're not listening to the dude afterwards. Like, that's brutal, dude. Holy.
Yeah. So when I heard that, I got fired up, and I held this in until today to talk about it, because when I heard that, I was like, man, it's just such a, it's just garbage. I don't like it, but we move on. We have other things to talk about, other areas of the game. Do we have anything else? I think you had something, or
no. My other thing was just the McDavid stats earlier.
Oh, okay.
Just going over his points per game.
Yeah.
His multiple over 1.5 points per game paces.
Yeah.
But
I do have a couple fun stats for the Stanley Cup Final, because we do know it is the Edmonton Oilers, the Florida Panthers. We got some fun stats here, which I decided we'll just cover them now rather than talking about them next episode. So next episode we can just be fully focused on the series.
Yeah, break it down the lines by lines kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Because like we only got one series, so we can fully invest everything we have into that series. Starting off, Corey Perry, the first player in NHL history to appear in the Stanley Cup Final with 5 different teams.
Yep.
The 2007 Anaheim Ducks, which he did win the Stanley Cup.
Thank God he has that cup, man. Holy, this run he's had in the last 5-6 years would be brutal if he didn't have it.
Yeah. The 2020 Dallas Stars did not win a cup. The 2021 Montreal Canadiens did not win the Stanley Cup. Now, bear in mind, 2020 and 2021 lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning both times. So 2022, he's like, hey, I'll go to Tampa then, pull a Marian Hossa and get it done. Nope. Unfortunately, lose with the Tampa Bay Lightning that year. And now
let's get to the finals again somehow, but it doesn't happen.
And then this year signs with the Chicago Blackhawks, who he was going to be the second worst team in the league. Messes around, gets his contract terminated, signs with the Edmonton Oilers, and now 2024 is back in the Stanley Cup Final. So Corey Perry has a chance to finally get that second ring after 3 failed attempts in 3 consecutive years in the Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah, he is 1-0 in Stanley Cup Finals that don't involve the Tampa Bay Lightning that he's been part of.
That is very true. Now, here's a fun one because I know you're gonna love to answer this.
Oh yeah.
Now, based on the area we're in, a lot of people are gonna hate me asking you this. But what was the 2004 Stanley Cup Final? How did that? What were the teams and how did that go?
That was the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Calgary Flames.
Yes.
The infamous it was in moment in the dying minutes of Game 6.
First of all, I'm unbiased because I really do like both teams because I've got family members who support both teams. Unbiased, it was not in. 20 years later, we still have the Battle of we still have Alberta versus Florida, except this time the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. So kind of 20 years later, coming full circle now. Same thing, just 2 different teams.
Yeah, a little bit.
Those 2 teams, Edmonton and Florida, Sunrise, Florida, which is where the Florida Panthers are from, it marks the longest distance between Stanley Cup Finals opponents at 4,089 kilometers. It is the largest distance between 2 teams in the Stanley Cup Finals.
It's got to be the largest possible other than Florida, Vancouver, right? Like maybe Florida, Seattle might.
I think it'd still be Vancouver. But I think Vancouver, Florida
Vancouver, Florida would be the furthest, but like
the
Seattle,
Luongo
Florida
final
might be in between Edmonton and Florida, but like at this point there's 1, possibly 2 other combinations that could be further.
Yeah. And the last one I have here, which this one kind of actually blows my mind. I just found this out this morning. Do you remember how the 2014 draft went? So we talked about 20 years ago. Let's talk about 10 years ago. Do you remember the 2014 NHL draft?
Oh, I do. I think I heard about this one. Yes, all the players that were drafted in the top 4. Is it?
The top 4
are in.
Yeah, Aaron Ekblad, 1st overall to Florida. Sam Bennett, 2nd overall to Buffalo, who's now in Florida. 3rd overall, somehow, Leon Draisaitl to the Edmonton Oilers. And then 4th overall, Sam Bennett to the Calgary Flames, who is now a member of the Florida Panthers. All 4 players in the top 4 of that draft are in the Stanley Cup Finals, which, as far as I know, that's never happened before. I haven't got anyone to fact check it yet, but from what I've been able to find, that has never happened before, which
doesn't seem incredibly likely.
Is pretty
it's a pretty rare stat.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, like who knows the next time something like that's going to happen.
And then the last one I have, this one isn't, as big, but you might like it because the Tampa Bay Lightning did help for 3 years of it. But the state of Florida has been represented in the Stanley Cup Final for 5 consecutive seasons. That is incredible. that one state has had a representative in the Stanley Cup Final 5 years in a row.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
when was the last time that happened? I guess probably like
did it?
probably
Well,
the Islanders dynasty,
actually,
because
yeah, it would have
they
been
won
the
4 in a
Islanders.
row and then they got to the finals again the
Yeah, and
next year,
lost to
right?
Edmonton. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
So I
the
mean,
Islanders on their own did it for New York.
yeah. So 1984, 85, like like a long time ago. And the fact that Florida, especially Florida, that's for the longest time was kind of considered as like a non-hockey market, really. Like it's like, oh, Florida's not a
Yeah.
hockey state. The fact that now 5 years in a row they've had a representative in the Stanley Cup Final is pretty impressive, and it just continues to show that the game is growing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like there used to be places where it really felt like I don't know if it's going to work here, but like right now like it doesn't feel like there's anywhere that hockey doesn't work that there's a team. Like and even like in Arizona where they're leaving to Utah now, like it does still feel like there's a market there. It was just bad management and ownership. So
Well, exactly. Like they
there
showed they did in 2012? Yeah, 2012. Like
yeah.
they were selling up the barn for playoffs and whatnot, and like it was rowdy there. It was nuts. And it was like, this is the Arizona Coyotes finally. And then management, ownership, whatever you want to call it, was like, hey, let's just fucking ram a screwdriver into the side and be like, hey, nope, we're done. Like let's just rip it apart. And then they're off to Utah now. The Utah Hockey Club. It sounds like they're going to be for their first year. That whole build up, and it's going to be Utah Hockey Club.
Yeah, they did say that they were gonna do the first year as the Utah Hockey Club, and
Which I
then
think
they're gonna
is
do it next year.
embarrassing. They fight so hard for an expansion team to be like, hey, let's just try and milk extra money off jerseys and all this, and then next year we'll finally have one, and people will have to buy more and whatnot. I
Yeah,
think
it's just weird. It's not that difficult to get a logo, pick a name, you know.
like from a financial standpoint, I get it, but for how hard you fought for a team to finally get it and you pull that, I think is kind of bullshit. So I wouldn't be surprised if not a lot of like I would love to see just a bunch of fucking fans roll in night one in the barn, their first home game of the regular season, Coyotes jerseys. I would love that.
Hmm.
Just a
They'll
big
probably get a
fuck you,
decent
and
amount of them.
we're not gonna buy these shitty Utah Hockey Club jerseys
Well, yeah,
that are
if
Walmart style,
well,
Fanatics, and Fanatics as well. Fuck, even
yeah,
worse,
yeah, I
even
guess.
worse.
Like, yeah, like you can be like, yeah, I want a jersey for my new team if you're gonna cheer for them, but if they don't have your logo on them yet and stuff, like, unless I guess it might seem a little retro. It might be a bit of a day one thing that you'd want, but I'd rather just have one with an actual logo and a team name.
Well, especially because just think about what's Fanatics going to charge. Do you think? I thought about this the other day, and now I'm thinking about it more because Fanatics was
It's
kind of
probably gonna be the same price. Like, I don't
the
think it goes
lower.
down.
But I'm thinking like Fanatics was kind of like the lower price compared to Adidas to drive more people there. If Fanatics is like the main manufacturer and they don't have that other, lower company throwing out kind of knockoff jerseys, Fanatics can charge whatever they want.
Yeah, they're definitely
Like
gonna
unless
charge
someone
at least the
swoops in
same
and
as Adidas, and
yeah, like unless
just
someone
people
else
aren't gonna buy
swoops in to
jerseys.
take in that spot where Fanatics was for the cheaper jerseys, Fanatics can charge whatever they want. And it's like, hey, you want a jersey? Pay this price or you ain't getting one.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how Utah's jersey sales would do with a shit
I
name
I
and no
think
logo.
I think league wide jersey sales are gonna go down as soon as Fanatics
Mhm.
becomes the norm. And yeah, if you know a good place for knockoff jerseys that are $120, let us know on Twitter, because that's if you want new jerseys, you're probably going to be getting the knockoff ones,
Yeah,
because
because I don't.
it's gonna be basically the same quality, right? Like,
I think so. And my problem is like as a Sharks fan, assuming unless like Mike Greer decides, hey, I hate my job, let's sue our franchise, they're going to draft Macklin Celebrini first overall. I would like to get a Celebrini jersey, but I want to kind of get that. Like I'm assuming he's probably going to, be 71. but I don't know for sure. But I would like to get
Yeah.
an Adidas jersey of it rather than, because I'm not buying a Fanatics. Like I'm not. I'm
No.
boycotting that thing.
Yeah.
So I would like to get an Adidas one, but like I don't want to get the wrong number and then I look like a huge jackass anytime I wear it. So
Definitely
I'm
buy a blank Sharks jersey and hold on to it, because even without Adidas and stuff, there will be places you can go to get it sewed on.
Do you think so? I don't know if you. I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. Locally when we go to Pro Hockey Life here and do that,
They
they
send it
send.
to Adidas though.
I don't think they do. I think they send it off to their guys who sew it on.
I'm pretty sure they send it to Adidas and Adidas does it and then they ship it back. As far as I know, I could be wrong, but because I'm totally boycotting Fanatics. I am
Yeah.
not giving them
Yeah.
anything. Like they are not getting a cent from me.
Yeah, and I pretty much every hockey fan I know that I've talked to about it says the exact same thing. Like, so many of my buddies that are all Flames fans, like, one of my buddies just bought two. I can't remember. They were like 30% off Flames jerseys, so he bought like 3 separate jerseys all at once because he's like, I'm not buying once Fanatics comes around. They're
Yeah.
they're just not good. They're just horrible. And it's unfortunate. I hope that they change the way they're doing it. Like, it doesn't have to be a fuck Fanatics thing. If they come out with their jerseys and they're just very genuinely good, I'll be fine with it. Like,
Well, and that's also the thing. Do you think teams change their jersey designs now because like it's Fanatics, or do you think they keep the same concept and they're like, "Hey, Fanatics, just recreate this"? Like, I'm kind of curious to see how that goes. Like, does every team almost kind of come with a new style of jerseys and whatnot, or do they just be like, "Hey, Fanatics, recreate these"? Is also another thing I'm kind of curious to see how that goes because every team's now got the opportunity where they can completely kind of revamp how they do their,
I imagine
home and away, maybe alternates. I don't know if Fanatics will
I
do
imagine they'll be
alternates, but
recommended to not change them because they're doing less of the like the reverse retros and stuff they won't be doing them anymore because
yeah.
Fanatics
Oh,
said
that's such an L.
they said they don't
That's
want to be
such an
making
L.
multiple different types of jerseys. They don't want to make too many. The jersey company came out and said, "Hey guys, we don't want to make too many different kinds of jerseys." Then why the fuck did
Yeah.
you sign with the National Hockey League? And
Yeah.
more importantly, I blame the NHL more than anything. Why are you choosing them?
You're literally choosing a name to have on the back that says fan. Like that right there is a red flag.
Yeah.
Before we get into the stats here right away, you did mention that, a lot of our close friends are Flames fans who a lot of them tune into this. I just want to ask them, how does it feel? You have to choose between either cheering for Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett on the Florida Panthers or the Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup Final. Flames fans must be fucking furious with this
I
Stanley Cup Final because
I
there
can
is
tell
no
you
win for them.
I can tell you they are furious, but not for the
They are
reason you're
cheering for
saying.
Florida.
I
They are
was gonna
cheering for
say
Florida
they're
still.
furious because the Oilers are in. Every Flames fan I know wants the Panthers to win.
They want Florida to win, but they did not want this matchup because they did not like all Flames
I
fans that I know
I think
wanted to
quite a
see
few of
Bennett and
them.
Kachuk suffer in Florida still. They did not want to see them immediately like lead the team to a cup, less than 5 years after wanting out of Calgary.
I think quite a few of the Flames fans I've talked to about it have said that they really want Kachuk to get that cup. I think they've been cheering for the
Really?
Panthers for a couple of rounds now. Definitely not all of them, but a good 3 or 4 of the Flames fans I've talked to over the past week or two have said that they've been cheering for the Panthers since the playoffs started.
Well, they are better men than me, then that's for sure.
Yeah, they quite a few of the Flames fans I know seem to really dislike the way Goudreau left the team, but they have no problem with Kachuk, which seems all kind of backwards to me. But
Well, no. That
I'm
because
also not
that's
watching as
fair.
much.
Because Kachuk originally, when he signed his bridge deal, he wanted a full 8-year deal with the Flames, and they didn't want to commit to that because they wanted to re-sign Michael Frolik, who I think they ended up having to include assets just to move him later that year.
Jeez.
So Kachuk actually wanted to be there for sign 8 years, and they're like, "Hey, no, we're gonna do a bridge deal," which he was like, "Okay," and then he was like, "Fuck, they don't value me, like, I'll go elsewhere." Whereas Goudreau, yeah, it was, kind of different stories bounced around. That was a messy ending, but Kachuk did actually want to stick with the Flame for the long haul, but he also kind of got the vibe that they didn't value him as much as he felt he was worth to that team, which,
Yeah.
looking at it, it's like, yeah, man, he was the face of that franchise, the future captain,
Yeah.
probably Conn Smythe winner one day with that
I
team.
cannot
So.
I cannot imagine having that guy on your team saying, "Hey, sign me 8 years," and going, "No." Fucking what?
Well, that's the same guy who's now stuck with the mess in Toronto. So curious to
Yeah,
see
we'll
how
see.
he handles all those superstars.
Yeah. Maybe he'll extend Ryan Reeves again.
Yeah, wait till he's 40 and be like, hey man, a couple more years. Come on, like 5 mil. Come on, just ride out a little bit more with us.
But anyway, we'll get into these stats leaders here. These are as of the end of the complete end of the third round, going into the finals. As far as points go, of course, leading the way, it's Connor McDavid with 31 points already. He's still got another series to play, followed by 28 points from Leon Draisaitl, 27 from Evan Bouchard, and 20 apiece for Vincent Trocheck and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, as well as Matthew Tkachuk at 19, just to include not all Oilers, and
Yeah,
one Vinny
just
Trocheck.
spread out a little bit.
And for goals, we got Zach Hyman with 14, Draisaitl and Wyatt Johnston both with 10, and then Carter Verhaeghe and Valeri Nichushkin at 9.
Nichushkin's still in there.
Yeah, dude, he's right up there. Honestly,
He's been out for so long.
Winnipeg got absolutely thrashed, but like I would be complaining to the league. This dude, like, allegedly he's like coked out of his mind or something playing against us, and he dropped 9 goals in 8 games.
I don't know if you could say that. I don't know if you could say that's what because we don't know yet. We don't know what he was doing.
We don't know, but like he failed a drug test.
Yeah. So
Like
yeah, fuck it. We can
do
say
know he
whatever we
failed a
want.
drug test. Like he was using something not allowed, and he dropped 9 goals in 8 games on us. Like
Yeah.
that's
You know what? Yeah.
like they got handled in the first round, which is why I don't think they do. If that game goes 6 or 7, I am all over Bettman. I am saying we have to redo the series. I'm saying it doesn't count. Like that's unfair.
And it's like I mentioned to you before, is I don't know this based off experience, but just from internet research, I'll say that because then I'm safe. If you smoke weed or ingest cannabis in any way, it is in your system for a while, but that does not qualify for this level of being suspended for this amount of time. So, for failing a drug test like this and this level of suspension, we know that it is more than that. So, we're kind of, assuming that it's more than that. We don't know for sure. We probably will never know.
They probably
we'll
won't
never
say
know
what specific drug it is. I don't think that's never necessary.
No.
But
no, we will never know.
The fact is,
sure.
it's something that they deem you're not allowed to use while on the ice, and he used it against the Jets. So
Yeah.
it's not like a major story because it wasn't that close to a series. But like, if I was a Jets fan, I'd be a little sore about it.
I mean, yeah, but looking at it, it's like Jets weren't going to the Cup Final anyway. Like, I don't even think they were getting past Dallas, and if they did, they're probably not getting past Edmonton, considering Edmonton beat Dallas the way they did. So
probably not, but they had high expectations and they went out in 5.
Well, what's new for them, right? Like it's rinse and repeat for them for the last couple of years.
But moving on to the goalie stats, we got this is with a minimum of 14 games played, which means we are only got 4 goalies here. For sorting by save percentage, we got Igor Shesterkin with a 926, Jake Ottinger with a 913, Sergei Bobrovsky with a 908, and Stuart Skinner with an 897, which is honestly like really decent for all four of them in
Yeah.
the playoffs with 16 games or more for each of them. For the goals saved above expected, Igor Shesterkin with 13.1, Ottinger with 7.3, Bobrovsky with 4.8, and Stuart Skinner with 2.2 goals saved above expected. He's saving more than the average goalie. Like he's
Yeah.
putting in his bid for at the
And
very
that's
least being
just
the starter next year. Like
yeah, and that's the thing though, right? Is like Stuart Skinner, I was bashing on him pretty hard in parts of round one, especially in round two, which was very fair. But I have, you know, nothing bad to say about him in round three. I would actually have more bad things to say about Jake Ottinger. But at the same time, Ottinger was going up against, again, the best power play we've ever seen in NHL history. And then on top of that, McDavid and Draisaitl, just them in general. And then Zach Hyman, I mean, again, the best player in NHL history within 2 feet of the net. In the crease or right around, like, so, I
yeah,
mean, I don't
everything
think,
he touches goes in.
yeah, like, I don't think Jake Ottinger was great. I think he definitely could have, made a save here and there to kind of maybe keep Dallas in it a bit more. Again, like, I really can't blame him because it's like, look what he was
No.
going up against. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Connor McDavid, when he's oh, that's what the hell? Percentage of points scored on power play. Oh, I see. I thought that was the power play percentage when he was on the
No, I
ice.
want to hear these now. No, I want to hear this now. I want to hear these.
Uh
Percentage of points scored on the power play.
so Leon Draisaitl is at an even 50%. Half of his points in the playoffs have been on the power play. 45% for McDavid, so he's got a bit more even strength. 44 for Bouchard, 45 for Nugent Hopkins, 27% for Zach Hyman.
Yeah.
27% for Zach Hyman. So only that amount has been on the power play. So the rest is all upwards of 70% is even strength.
Yeah. And that's a big thing we're going to be talking about in the episode later this week is, kind of that special teams aspect of it. Like, you know, Florida's ability to avoid penalties to where if they're against Edmonton's power play, how can they stop it? And as well as if Florida gets a power play up against Edmonton's penalty kill, which we know went a perfect 100% against LA and a perfect 100% against Dallas. The only power play goals against, like shorthanded goals they allowed against, was against Vancouver in their series. So special teams will be definitely a big talking point for us on later this week.
Yeah, that's wild. Well, yeah, that'll definitely be a massive part of it because they caught I just remember every time I'm looking at the box score for their games, I see, oh, McDavid dropped another 3 points. Scroll over, you see the power play, 2 power play assists and a power play goal. Like their power play is so deadly. Yeah, it'll be a big focal point on our next episode.
For sure. So before we hop out of here, I'm just gonna ask you, and then we'll kind of revisit this later in the week. But initial predictions. What's your prediction for the Stanley Cup Final? And and this can change come later this week. Just in this moment right now, on the spot. I'm putting you on a spot here. What are you feeling?
I just get the feeling that Florida is not the kind of team that can get to the finals one year, fail, and then get to the finals again and fail again. I
Um,
think the Panthers have to take this. I'm gonna say in 6. Honestly, I'm almost leaning towards 5, but I'm gonna give them 6 at least.
mhm. See, so that's kind of where I'm at. Like it's you know, and again, it's not like we very rarely see teams in the Stanley Cup Final in back to back years. And it's tough when we don't really see them lose. Like I think the last time we seen a team in the Stanley Cup Final back to back years and lose was Detroit and Pittsburgh back in the late 2000s. Because I mean, Pittsburgh went back to back and they won both times. Tampa Bay did it; they won both times. I think it's very hard, especially like the mentality that Florida came in with going into the season, like in the preseason, like training camp was like, we're coming in. We know what we felt last year. We know that feeling. We do never want to feel that way again. We want to be on the opposite
Yeah.
side. So my brain, which isn't a great brain, like very small, very awful, garbage, is telling
Rip
me,
your garbage brain.
like probably Florida in 6. But in my gut, it's like, man, Edmonton's a team of destiny. Like
It
this
really
is
does have
it.
that vibe.
This is it. This is their year. The run they've been on,
Yeah.
everything. And then I'm like, and then my gut's like, hey, man, Edmonton in 6, Edmonton in 7,
Yeah.
Edmonton in 5, maybe with the upfront talent they have. So I'm so torn. I'm so in between.
I'd love to see Edmonton do it. McDavid's got to get one at some point. They have a great
And
team
that's
put
the thing.
together.
Like he is going to get one at some
We didn't
point.
even
It's like,
talk about McDavid's insane power play goal that he had against Dallas in Game 6, where he toe drags around the guy, goes around the goalie, and then big handles it, and he freaking goes far side. Like,
okay, so no, we can actually talk about it. So I want to hear your
that was
thoughts about
insane.
this. So I heard this was broken down by Elliot Friedman after the game. And I didn't really clue into it that much. And I was like, and then I started thinking, I'm like, shit, actually, yeah, like this makes McDavid seem like that much better. So that move he pulled off, and again, it's kind of the cliche of like, oh, he can stick handle in a phone booth type of thing.
Yeah.
He pulled off that move and just got around Miro Heiskanen, who's
of all people,
in my opinion, like a top 5 defender in the league. And then Elliot Friedman pointed out that it was such a high hockey IQ play by McDavid, because on the penalty kill at that time, that would normally be Chris Tanev there on the right side as a right-handed defenseman. But Tanev was in the box because he took the penalty, so he's serving the penalty. So it was Heiskanen filling in on that spot as a left-handed defenseman on the right side. And Elliot Friedman believes that McDavid on the ice noticed that
100%.
and was able to take advantage of that, which I fully agree with. A guy like McDavid, 100% he noticed that.
He probably saw that at the face-off and was licking his lips. He was going, if I get it over here, like, I don't know if he saw it beforehand or if he looked up with the puck, saw it and did it in the moment, but I 100% believe that he sees that and he goes, oh, it's going to be so annoying for him to try and stop me. It's going to be annoying to stop me either way. But the fact that he's trying to do it kind of with his stick on the wrong side, he definitely saw that opportunity and took it.
And like, no disrespect to Heiskanen, like, again, in my opinion, easily top 5 defenseman, not debatable. You could debate,
3.
you could debate top 3, but he does not dip below top 5. But the fact that McDavid was out there, noticed that and was like, oh, Heiskanen's normally not out here on the penalty kill like right now, let alone he's on the right side where Tanev is, and he's a left-handed guy. I'm taking advantage of that. And boy, did he ever, especially that early in the game. And again, on the power play, which we will talk about later this week, because I think special teams is the biggest determining factor of this series.
Yeah. It almost always is when the Oilers are involved. When a team has that deadly of a power play, it's always a massive.
But that's the thing, right? Not only power play, but penalty kill. Because I think they set an NHL record. I think it was like 20. I could be wrong, but I want to say like 28 consecutive penalty kills in the playoffs or something. Like it's an absurd amount of consecutive penalties killed in the playoffs by them.
If you can shut down the other team's power play as well, and that would really benefit Edmonton because Florida wants to drag them into a fight. That's going to be a big part of their game plan. So if they can do that as well and handle it afterwards, that could be massive.
But here's the thing, though. So I did kind of think about that, and it was something I was going to kind of talk about more later this week. But it makes more sense to bring it up now in this conversation because you mentioned the way Florida plays, but it's like you also got to wonder with a guy like Matthew Tkachuk, who he played his normal game, the way that Matthew Tkachuk plays in the playoffs last year, and we saw the wear and tear on his body, and eventually the brutal injury he endured. I almost kind of wonder if he's kind of been told, maybe, hey, you got to take a step back. Like, we can't have you being Matthew Tkachuk the way that you do, and getting the kind of injury that you did last year. Like, we kind of need you to maybe, keep up with your antics, but in terms of the rough stuff and the things you do, maybe you kind of got to tone it down, because we need you healthy if we're gonna win. Because that was the Florida Panthers last year. Basically, it was Matthew Tkachuk was the Florida Panthers, and I mean, a broken sternum. Like, I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
what that feels like. Let alone, like, it got to the point where we got reports where his brother Brady Tkachuk had to help him get out of bed on game day, and his teammates were helping him even put on his equipment. And he was still out there playing. It was like the Florida Panthers are not even contemplating letting him play the game that resulted in him getting to that point. Because, like,
yeah,
if the Panthers don't have Matthew Tkachuk in this series, Edmonton's probably sweeping or winning in
I
5.
don't know if they sweep them, but
Maybe not sweep, but probably in 5. So
I think Edmonton
I'm very
definitely
curious
wins
to
it.
see, the whole dynamic of, like, what do we see from guys like Bennett and Kachuk? Whereas when I kind of feel like, Paul Maurice and crew are kind of pulling them back, being like, hey, do your shit, get under their skin, but at the same time, protect yourself and don't put yourself in a spot to, take yourself out the way that Kachuk kind of did last year.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the league leaders in penalty minutes here in the playoffs, and Kachuk's number 12. He's got 19 penalty minutes. Number 1, Evander Kane. He's not afraid to go in there and beat the crap out of Matthew.
Well,
Tkachuk.
and that's a rivalry that's brewed back from the Battle of Alberta. I mean, Kane when he joined the Oilers late in the year, kind of in a similar sense to Corey Perry. They played the Flames in the playoffs, and Kachuk and Kane were kind of the highlight of that series, them going back and forth with each other. So we're getting that in the Stanley Cup Final. So I'm very curious to see how that plays out on both ends.
It's gonna be a really interesting series for sure, and I hope it at least goes 6 or 7. Give us a close one.
Right now, I mean, I'm kind of impartial to who wins. I'm just hoping for a very exciting Stanley Cup Final, because, I mean, last year I was, again, it's one of those things where it's like, if I don't have, one of my teams in there, which is kind of like, 5 or 6 teams that I like to see win, I don't care who wins. But it was Vegas last year, and fuck Vegas. So I did not want them to win. But this year, I really don't care who wins. I just want to see a fantastic series. I want to see close games, overtimes. I would love a game 7, but it would be on a Monday, which kind of sucks. I'm just hoping for
whoever
great
decided
hockey
that
here.
needs to be fired, man. That's bad.
Probably the same referee in the OHL playoffs who made that decision.
If the NHL Stanley Cup Finals goes to a Game 7, it should be a national holiday.
Yeah, I agree. At least in Canada.
At least in Canada. If you're the prime minister, run under that campaign and just become prime minister for free.
Honestly, probably would up here in Canada. Actually.
Also, make hockey our national sport. What the hell, man?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I love lacrosse. Don't get me wrong. But
you
like,
can have multiple
hockey
national sports,
is
right? Like,
no, you need
like
one.
Don't multiple countries have?
I don't give a shit about other countries. You should have one. And in Canada, in my opinion, again, I love lacrosse, but it is 100% hockey. Like,
curling almost makes more sense.
The atmosphere you're seeing in the playoffs in Canada, like we saw in Winnipeg. I don't count Toronto because there's too many fucking suits in the front row. What we saw in Winnipeg, and then in Vancouver, and then in Edmonton, all throughout the playoffs, including this Game 6, which was so loud. Like, Peter DeBoer, Dallas's coach, he was doing his press conference after the game, after losing, and you could hardly hear him because you could hear "Let's Go Oilers" chants surrounding the area around him. Like, it was so loud. It was incredible. So, in my opinion, hockey, national sport of Canada. You can't convince me otherwise.
If you
I'm
pulled
not changing that.
if you pulled 100 Canadians, I'm sure at least 70 would say it's hockey, right? Like, they would just
Yeah.
assume that it is. Like,
And the other 30 are just those nerds who are like, "Oh no, it's lacrosse." Like, fuck you.
yeah,
It's hockey.
yeah, but we all know it should be hockey.
Just let your balls drop, and then you'll realize, hey, it's hockey.
All right.
Okay, that might have been a bit much, but someone probably got offended. But
All right,
we move on.
wrap it up, you goober.
Yeah, we move on. But yeah, so that kind of wraps up everything we shit. Yeah, I might be in trouble there. But yeah, that wraps up everything we got for this episode of the Stick 'em Up podcast. Once again, we do want to thank everybody for tuning in to yet another episode. If you want to join in on any conversations with us, anything revolving your team's off season, your team's maybe playoffs this year, or you just want to talk about the Stanley Cup Final as we do, feel free to throw us a follow on any of our socials. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at SEU Hockey. We've been posting a lot more frequently on there as of late, and we will be putting out a lot more stuff this upcoming week, coming into the Stanley Cup Finals, as well as throughout the Stanley Cup Finals. So feel free to join in on any conversations with us there, or just let us know your opinion on there. Yeah, I think that's fair to say, right?
Absolutely, we do want to get more interaction with people online. We've been posting a lot more on the TikTok, on the Twitter, and even a bit on the Instagram. So we're talking to some people on there now. And it's a good time. It's good to see some people's some other people's perspectives on stuff for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like we've definitely been getting a lot more engagement as of late. As again, we've been trying to be more active lately, and again, just part of to try and again just chat with you guys more, because again, all we want to do is talk hockey, and if we can do that with you guys, that is always our goal, and we want to stick with that. So I think that wraps up everything for this episode. Thank you once again, everybody, for listening, and we will see you guys later this week for the Stanley Cup Final.